Now I've finished working on the first building, at least laying out the basic measurements for our first building. Now I'm going to start putting windows. I'm doing similar things, similar measurement points to the first building. I'll try to do the same thing to buildings near it. So I'm drawing similar lines all the way. Now it's 1 point perspective. I'm sorry, 2 point perspective. So all the lines are going directly downward on the horizon. If we were going with 3 point, we would have to worry about a vanishing point on top of our image as well, but that's not the case this time around. We're going 2 point perspective. It's just the action's happening a little bit above the horizon. But again, it's a lot of lines, putting a lot of lines down. I tend to go over the lines a lot. I want to be able to see them in terms of mass and weight all the way through. And also I want to start getting an idea that this building is supposed to be in front of the other one. So eventually I'm going to go into this building with a little bit more line weight. Not crazy amounts of line weight that takes away from the image itself, but just enough line weight to push the image all the way through. You can see I've built a bit of pillars at different points here. The structure of the windows is going to be different in this building than in the building next to it. That adds a little bit of implied realism to the actual scene, because it makes you feel like each building is different from one to the other. However, I keep the structure pretty similar all the way through. So the building itself looks like it has a specific type of window present throughout. Move my line around, start working on the next side. Some lines all the way through just to figure out exactly where our windows are going to be yet again, and to figure out where our pillars are going to be. Drawing the lines down. A little bit, I'm also going to be working a lot with dimensions here, because I'm going to add the little line right next to the ridge of the corners to make it pop out just a little bit more. Going over the lines just a little bit to differentiate them just somewhat from the background itself. The inking stage will take care of a lot of the line weight elements, but I like to put stuff down anyway. Definitely, if I'm working with an inker, I try to put as much information as possible. And see, the building pops out a bit more, and it's a different building all the way through, so it feels like there's actual space between them. I'm going to start working on the back building and apply a little bit of this as well. And much like the other two buildings, I'm going to try to do a different window set and a different window style on this one too. Not too different, because you don't want it to feel like they're all buildings that were plopped here by accident from some, I don't know, time vortex or something. Um, want them to feel like they're part of the same city, but you do want to differentiate the type of building you're doing from each piece. There's an implied realism that you want to bring to your work, but even when you're doing fantasy stuff, you want to keep it to this type of measurement all the way through, because when we go into fantastic world, like it's saying like science fiction movies or horror movies or whatnot, sometimes the few things that anchor us into what the reality of the story is are the visual elements, and a lot of them work best when they remind us of the world that we already live in. For example, the buildings here, even though there's going to be a flying man showing up pretty soon, they serve to remind us that even though these events are happening and they're crazy, it's happening in the real world. So grounding the buildings in a sense of realism and actually preparing them and setting them up helps. Now I'm going to once again throw out a lot of lines. Not as many as the ones from before, because the building has a little bit more of a distance. But I'm going to be throwing out some lines to designate the windows, and the type of windows we're going to be looking at in this building. And there it is. Here are our buildings. Clearly defined. And we're slowly going to start moving to the next part of our presentation, adding more depth to them and adding more details to the windows that we've actually created in this plane. Alright, well now we have our buildings defined within their space and we have their windows. So now we're going to define these windows and define how they're going to work. Going back in. Drawing the little different ridges in there. You'll see in a second how it works. You'll notice that as I draw, I get closer to the paper. That's an affectation of the artist. I tend to work close to my work. And most people do too. If you look at most artists, they tend to get closer in there, especially when you're working on the side of the detailing of a specific type of shot. Now I'm going in there. Now I'm going to set up our shot. As you can see, it's very similar to the building itself. I'm going to designate where my character is going to be in this grid. Same way that perspective affects buildings, characters are affected by perspective as well. So what's going to be cool about this is to set up exactly where we want our character to be, and from that point figure out exactly where to make him stand. And see, we've already set him up. Plenty of space in the sky. Now I'm about to go and block out our image. As you can see, a lot of the drawing I did beforehand is going to end up outside of our selected space. Well, the idea again is that no drawing just exists within the drawing. It's almost like each drawing is a window into some pretend world that either you came up with, or the guy or lady that wrote your ideas came into, or an assignment you got. But there should be